Hello and welcome to Lone Star Silver Screen, a podcast about everything that exists at the intersection of Texas and the movies. I'm your host, Austin Zook, and today I'm joined by an old friend of mine, Cait Kennedy. How are you doing today?
It's weird to hear the term old friend, but it's true. You and I have known each other a long time, and I'm doing good. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here. For anyone who isn't familiar with your work, you are a film and literature critic. You've been involved in the scene for a long time now. I mean, how would you describe your work?
In a nutshell, I am story obsessed. I've been covering film since 2018, all over the place. My bylines include Daily Dead, Paste Magazine, Polygon, The Mary Sue. I have my own Simply Cinema Substack newsletter now. Very recently, of course, I stretched into books and publishing because that's just an area I really love. Honestly, I think that kind of the best summary of my work is I do think that every movie, really every story, every book, every movie has the potential to be somebody's favorite. I'm really not here to judge. I'm here to help people find their next favorite thing.
I love that. And of course, as far as your bylines go, we would be remiss if we did not name check one of the great Texas institutions, unfortunately no longer with us, Birth Movies Death. You wrote an all time piece, one that I actually love and come back to, which is Cinema Eats the Rich, about some films. I think it was in 2019 that all happened to be
Yeah.
about rich people getting attacked.
Yeah, that's one of my all-time favorites that I've written as well. So 2019 with Ready or Not, Knives Out, and Parasite was just a great year of billionaires getting their comeuppance.
Yes, it was. And it's only become more relevant over the years.
I reflect often.
So today, you and I are here, and what I want to do, and we have never done anything like this on the show before, so it could totally fall apart, but I'm hoping it doesn't. We are going to do the Mount Rushmore of Texas movie stars, okay? So
Hmm.
I have compiled a list of just over 20 names of people who are in contention. You and I are going to talk through them, maybe debate their merits, and hopefully at the end of this, we're going to settle on a consensus top four that I'm sure the internet will agree with and nobody will ever call me out for.
Absolutely. Notoriously, the
Before,
internet is very agreeable.
yeah, they're so easygoing. Everyone, chill. So before we jump into this, before we start going through the list, I wanted to ask you to set the stage. What do you think makes a great movie star? And what do you think that a Texas movie star should represent?
Gosh, I think that a great movie star exists at that very careful intersection of the ability to totally transform and to be immediately recognizable no matter the role. Because I feel like there are so many great actors that they disappear into a given role and they body it completely, but they might not be the folks that have the magnetism and the draw where it's their name alone, their face alone. And I think that that's what really makes a movie star is to have such a strong presence and honestly, and we can argue about this later, but the person that I always think of is Matthew McConaughey, who has totally transformed and stepped into so many different roles, but McConaughey is always McConaughey. There's something that he carries with him. So that's a movie star to me.
Well, and since we're talking about McConaughey, last year I had the opportunity to see him perform live. He was doing his book tour for his Poems and Prayers book, and I drove to Austin because he unfortunately did not make the trek to Dallas, and I got to see him on stage with John Baptiste, and it was amazing. And kind of to what you're saying, there is just this magnetism, and even when he's on stage, playing himself, it's just there's something that draws you in and keeps you there, and you're just totally sold on their performance because it's Matthew McConaughey.
Yep. The second prong of your question, a Texas movie star, is I do think that Texas has such a unique identity and culture in and of itself. I think that despite maybe what some would politically assume about the state, there's a very wild spirit here. There's a very flexible spirit. There's a very progressive spirit. And I think that part of being a Texas star beyond just being a movie star is being able to speak to the complexity of Texas as a whole, to be able to kind of contain those multitudes as the state does.
Now, and I did not prep you for this, so if you don't have an answer, it's okay. We can cut this out. But I wanted to ask, when you think about Texas films, Texas movies, I mean, are there any that jump out to you as kind of the hallmarks of this state's representation in film?
Oh gosh, yeah, I think with the Elizabeth Taylor film Giant is one of those. It's a hallmark of just great Hollywood scale and spectacle. I think that in order to capture Texas, you have to have grand scale and spectacle. There's the kind of fantastical Wild West element meets these very raw human emotions. I think that that film overall touches so many different identities and historical waves and these big high passion feelings. To me, Giant is one of those exemplary Texas films. Of course, Dazed and Confused, anything from the House of Linklater, just these I think that there's, and golly, I don't want to ramble on, but it's something that feels both fantastical and familiar. Because again, I think that Texas kind of exists at that intersection. It's a very down home southern state in every way, but also just historically, like you think about the role of Houston in the space race and kind of that golden age of American history and our very unique history, going all the way back to being our own republic, before we became a state, all of that. There's a vastness of mythology to Texas that feels totally beyond the pale, but is also something that many people can relate to because there are so many cultures.
Yeah, well, and I think we're going to see that represented in the different types of film stars we're going to talk about today, because I think each of them can kind of be said to represent maybe a portion of that mythology and that
Hmm.
Texas feel. So let's jump into it, okay? I wanted to start with maybe the youngest contender on the list, okay? It's
Okay.
Mr. Glenn Powell from Austin, Texas. Started his career in 2003. He's a regular collaborator with Richard Linklater, who we've already name checked, who will probably come up again in this episode, I'm guessing. His big films: Top Gun Maverick, Hitman, The Running Man, Anyone But You. I believe he was also in Everybody Wants Some, another Linklater joint. I think he's a guy who's up and coming. My personal opinion is that, maybe he's a contender for Mount Rushmore in 10 or 20 years, but I don't know if he's there yet. What do you think?
I would agree completely. I kind of view Glenn Powell and Austin Butler as sort of heir apparents to what McConaughey has been doing. Whenever I look at Glenn Powell today, I see a what was, oh gosh, the Kate Hudson rom com with Matthew McConaughey.
Is it it's not How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days
Is it
or
How to Lose a
Failure
Guy
to
in 10 Days? No, I think you nailed it. But that very specific era of the rom-com McConaughey, I feel that that's exactly where Glenn Powell is right now with showing those chops. Like you look at a film like Hitman, you look at a film like The Running Man, and I would agree completely. I think that he's going to be where McConaughey is, 10, 15 years from now.
Okay, so we're gonna make Glenn red for now. Now we're
Hmm.
gonna jump to someone a little more controversial, okay? Mr. Gary Busey. Okay, a man who his star has fallen in recent years. He has some controversial opinions, but he is a Texan, and there was a time when Gary Busey was, I would argue, one of the most exciting character actors working. Now, does that qualify him as a movie star? That's what we're here to find out. I mean, big films from him: The Firm, Silver Bullet, Lost Highway. He's in A Star Is Born in more of a supporting role. What are your thoughts on his career?
I think that just strictly kind of thinking in terms of star power and a Mount Rushmore of Texas stars, longevity is very important. And what makes a particular star memorable, when I think of The Firm, Gary Busey is not the first thing I think of. He is not what sticks out about that film. And in fact, when I think of Gary Busey, usually it's not his films that come to mind at all currently. I think that he's kind of gone down a tragic path that so many entertainers do. He had some great work, but does it endure? I don't think so.
I think that's fair. Well, we're talking about longevity, so let's jump to someone who might be our first yes, okay? Or at least our first maybe. Tommy Lee Jones,
I love him.
one of the greats. Do you have any specific Tommy Lee Jones performances that jump out to you?
Gosh. Well, I mean, Men in Black is just
Of course.
iconic. I have often referred to Tommy Lee Jones as my old man crush. I put him right up there with Robert Redford in terms of just sexy. Don't ask me to explain. Man of the House, a lot of fun. I think that he's got this great range of being able to do very serious work that he carries very well. He works wonderfully as a dramatic actor. but then he's able to bring that personality, that kind of gruff, grumpy vibe to everything else he does. Lincoln, he has a small part in that film, but it is one of my favorites. Just kind of this, I think he has a very wry approach to the politics of that film that takes something that could be very flat and makes it fun. But yeah, I mean, Men in Black is my favorite.
His speech in Lincoln, where he's on the floor of the House,
Hmm.
and they ask him, do you believe all men are created equal? And he says, "How can I believe all men are created equal when here before me stands proof that all men are not created equal? That some of them are slime and imbued with no spine by their creator."
Hmm.
That whole thing, just everything he delivers is incredible. Tommy Lee Jones, another important thing about him, he's one of the guys on this list that has an Oscar. So he's gotten some recognition from the Academy itself. He got Best Supporting Actor for his work in The Fugitive, one of the great Harrison Ford action films.
Yeah.
And to your point earlier about Gary Busey, when people think about that film, I think a lot of them do think about Tommy Lee Jones. I think he does leave an impression even when he's in a supporting role.
I agree completely. I think that that's part of his strength. And again, there's that range. He's an instantly recognizable face and tone in a film. He does comedy just as well as he does drama. He can move through different time periods and settings in a way that I find really interesting. And those eyebrows, I dig those eyebrows. I can't believe we're not talking about Batman.
Oh my God, yeah, you're people don't talk about it enough. What a swing from Mr.
I mean, my God, like his Two-Face Harvey Dent is absolutely fantastic. The ultimate camp.
Do you think that is a better Two Face than what we got in The Dark Knight from Aaron Eckhart?
I love anything campy and comic. I prefer now, with the exception of the Matt Reeves Batman, which I think is just one of the greatest takes on the character of all time.
I
I
agree.
do like a campy comic book movie, so I don't have a problem with those earlier Batman films and the color.
I completely agree with that. So Tommy Lee Jones, right now, they're sketching him. Okay, he's on the plans right now. I've got him blue, so we're gonna come
Okay.
back to him. So after Tommy Lee Jones, let's jump to somebody who has actually been in a film with him before, Mr. Harrelson. So this is one that I think I'm on the fence about because I think you could make the argument either way for Woody Harrelson. What's your relationship to him and his body of work?
Woody Harrelson, another one of those actors who kind of it's very easy to kind of think of him in the same vein as McConaughey, where he's got this instantly recognizable presence. He brings a lot of humor to his work. White Men Can't Jump, I think, is just a really fun film.
I
And I
just watched
honestly,
that for the first time last week. I'd never seen that movie.
oh man,
I know, he's so great in it.
it's
And
so
Wesley
great.
Snipes, oh my God.
Yeah, it's just an incredible film, really fun film. And then you can even think about smaller roles that he had in like Zombieland, where there's just this, he's able to take a very small role and kind of make it instantly iconic. I think that especially in our generation, just the attachment to Twinkies in that movie, I think it endures.
Absolutely. So what do you think? I mean, does Woody Harrelson go on the list? Is he enough of a movie star or is he more of like a character actor?
Oh gosh, he's up there. He's definitely up there. I do think that there are other actors just kind of within the Texas canon that maybe shine a little brighter. I do think he's a wonderful representative of Texas in film. I really appreciate the efforts that he's going to bring more of the film and entertainment industry production wise to Texas. I know that his work with the Texas Film Commission has been huge. So I don't know. I want to keep him hovering in a maybe because I do think there's something to be said for activism and advocacy.
I think that's a great point and something we should call out. And one of our early episodes was actually a conversation with the president of the Dallas Producers Association, Ian Loomer, and he was talking a lot about kind of the incentives bill that was passed here in Texas. And Woody Harrelson, Matthew McConaughey, they were out there beating the drum for that, and I think there's something to be said about that.
Hmm.
Okay, Woody Harrelson's yellow. Let's keep moving down the list. Okay, so next, another guy who I think you could make an argument for. I don't know if you're going to. Owen Wilson.
Are
Oh,
you
she's thinking.
So are you pro or anti? I'm going to flip it back on you because I noodled over this one.
Yeah, I've given this one a lot of thought. I don't ever want to say I'm anti Owen Wilson. I think a couple of things against him, okay? I think his best films are the ones where he is not the star. And I also think his star has fallen. He's just not as prevalent as he was 10 or 15 years ago, even though he's still active. I think he is not using his stardom in an exciting way. And I think that's another thing is I think you have to be willing to wield the stardom a little bit to be a great movie star.
I think that's totally fair. And that's about where I was sitting where because I do think Owen Wilson just has this immediate, I mean you know Owen Wilson from, voice alone. His
Yeah,
he has just got this incredibly notable, instantly recognizable, very very dynamic presence, that ability to be flexible across, genre, across tone, all of those things. But there is a and this is one of those deal this is where the internet is totally not going to have any problem with our methodology.
yeah.
How do you capture the it factor? How do you
Hmm.
capture what separates someone who has this kind of set persona and magnetism and uses it really well as opposed to rests on it?
Right.
And that's kind of where I'm at with Owen Wilson is I think he's absolutely fantastic. I think that I think that there are more dynamic figures that we're going to
Yeah.
talk about.
I think that's a great call. I think he's another guy who's kind of like a sort of in the honorable mention category, where it's
Yes.
like, we have a lot of admiration for him and what he does. I just wish he did a little more of it.
There are only four heads on Mount Rushmore.
That's right. That's right. We got to make some tough cuts. Now, this next one, I'm actually going to lean on you for because I don't have as much of a relationship with this actor, and I have a feeling you might. Patrick Swayze.
Everybody's first love is Patrick Swayze.
Now, Patrick Swayze is interesting because he's one of the people on this list who is no longer with us. Unfortunately, he passed away kind of tragically young for a movie star back in 2009. But in the 80s and 90s, I think you could very much make an argument that he was the guy, especially at certain points. Red Dawn, The Outsiders, Roadhouse, Point Break, Dirty Dancing. These are not only films that were big at the time, but they have endured in a really interesting way. I think basically all of those have had remakes or they're still in the cultural conversation. People still watch them.
Oh yeah.
What is your opinion on Mr. Swayze?
There is one more film that I would have to call out because it is the film that I hold closest whenever thinking of Patrick Swayze, but it's To Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar. Are you familiar?
I'm not familiar at all. Tell me about
That
it.
that is the it's a absolutely fucking fantastic film. Can we swear on air?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. You can swear.
Okay, good, good. We should have covered that earlier. Yeah, so it is the story of three drag queens played by John Leguizamo, Patrick Swayze, and Wesley Snipes
Okay.
that are driving cross country to a beauty pageant in California. Their car breaks down in a podunk, middle of nowhere, middle America town. There is a prejudiced sheriff who is after them. They are disguising themselves as women in this community that's sort of been forgotten by the world. And during this brief time while they are waiting for their car to be repaired, they save a woman from an abusive marriage. They meddle in the love lives of all the folks in town. They remind these folks that have been living kind of humdrum lives what it is to be fabulous. It is a hilarious movie. It's a heartwarming movie. And at the time, it was one of the hottest tickets in terms of roles that actors were going for. I remember that Robert Downey Jr. notably really wanted to be cast in the film. And so when you look at that cast of Patrick Swayze, John Leguizamo, and Wesley Snipes, each play a very different version of kind of that drag queen fabulous. Patrick Swayze is sort of the soft emotional core of that film, and I think more than his two co-stars who do a fantastic job, I think that he shows such a comfort of leaning into femininity
Yeah.
and not just, a muscle-bound man in a dress, which is exactly where Wesley Snipes is going with it in the
Of
most
course.
delightful way.
Yeah.
But just Patrick Swayze gives one of his all-time best and I think deepest performances in that role. Which is to say that beyond these great films, like we have Dirty Dancing and Roadhouse, that they have this huge stamp from their time. I also think that Tu Wong Fu and films like that kind of show not just movie star power, but just this real depth as an actor. Sorry, I can't have a conversation about Patrick Swayze without Tu Wong Fu coming up.
Well, no, I love that. First off, I love the passion. I think that's exactly what I was hoping for when I brought up Mr. Swayze. I love that you recommended a film that I have not only never seen but never heard of. So now I need to
Oh my
check that
God.
out. I know. I've got to add it to the list.
Invite me
So
back for Pride Month. We'll talk about
you are on. So
it.
do you think Mr. Swayze goes on Mount Rushmore?
Yes, as of right now, yes. I think that there will be strong arguments across multiple figures. In my own list, I made a list of who all I was going to bully you about. That list is
Okay.
7 people long.
Okay. Perfect. All right. So Mr. Swayze's a maybe right now. They're sketching him right between Tommy Lee Jones and Woody Harrelson.
Yes.
So let's move on to our next contender. Okay. And this is someone who I'm going to fight for if I have to. The patron saint of this podcast, Mr. Ethan Hawke.
Good. We won't have to fight.
Good, thank God. Kind of in an exciting place right now. His daughter just got married, which I saw pictures floating around on my Instagram this week. Nominated for Best Actor for his work in Richard Linklater's Blue Moon. They
Hmm.
are longtime pals. He's worked with him a number of times, significantly on Boyhood and the Before trilogy, both of which I think are just all timers in terms of the history of cinema. I think those both have a place in the hall.
Hmm.
What's your relationship to Ethan Hawke like?
Oh, I just think he's incredible. He's fascinating. I mean, there are some actors that this is going to be the weirdest comparison. But have you ever been like vaguely hypnotized by a boa constrictor at the zoo? And you
Yeah.
just like, can you viscerally go to that place? Because that's how I feel looking at Ethan Hawke is just like this hypnotic draw in. Not that he's scary, not that he's reptilian. It's a weird fucking feeling. It's just the
Yeah.
only one I can point to. Um, some of my favorite work that he has done is The Black Phone.
Yeah.
Like,
He's so
oh
good at
my
the Black Phone.
so good in the Black Phone. He's good in everything. He's good in Moon Knight. Like and
Which
he does
no one nees to be good in.
right, which nobody has any business being good in, and yet everybody is fantastic. Season
Yeah,
2, please. But yeah, he does this really interesting work, and I bring up Moon Knight and the Black Phone kind of on purpose in that he does have that pedigree of Boyhood and Blue Moon, these very kind of and I'm not going to stoop so far as to like call them Oscar bait, but these films that are made for an actor to really flex,
right.
which he does incredible in. He's fascinating to watch. He really sinks into these roles. But then even you put him in a giant Marvel CGI studio fest and he's still interesting and he's still arresting and you put him behind a mask in the Black Phone and you give him really weird like ice skates in Black Phone 2 and he carries it and makes it work. I would love so much more horror from
Yeah.
Ethan Hawke. I did not know how much I needed it until Black Phone, but oh my God.
Yeah, no, he's amazing. I saw Black Phone. It was my first trip to New York. I got there and my friend who was supposed to be going with me got delayed 24 hours. And so I had a whole day where I was just by myself in Manhattan and I was like, well, I guess I'm going to go see a movie. And so I found a theater and I did kind of the Jackie Brown thing where I was like, well, I'm just going to watch something that starts soon and looks good.
Mhm.
And it was Black Phone. And that's like one of my favorite movie going experiences. I was in some grungy New York theater watching Ethan Hawke be amazing, doing something you don't really get to see him do very often.
Yeah.
And I think, to your point, one of the great things about him as a movie star is he is someone who you can make him the lead of an indie, and you're like, yeah, of course, Ethan Hawke's the lead of an indie. He's great. He can be the villain or the third guy on the call sheet in a big franchise thing, and you're like, yeah, he's going to kill it. He's going to be great. Or if tomorrow they came out and they were like, yeah, we're doing a new Star Wars thing. It's going to star Ethan Hawke. I would be like, you know what? Yeah, sure, let's go
Makes
see it.
sense. Why not? Yeah.
Yeah, he could do anything. So I'm making Ethan Hawke a strong contender. He's one of our blues right now with Tommy Lee
Yes.
Jones. Let's talk Bill Paxton, another of our dearly departed.
Hmm.
I think probably the film of his that resonates the most still with him as a leading man is Twister.
Yeah.
He has an amazing career. Tombstone, The Terminator, Aliens. I mean, all his work with James Cameron is legendary.
Hmm.
And of course, I think later in his career, he kind of found a second life for himself. He was one of the first actors to really pop off on TV, opposite Kevin Costner and Hatfields and McCoy. What do you think of Bill Paxton?
Okay, here's where I want to kind of get into technicalities and just
Okay.
how are we going to start narrowing this down?
Yeah.
Is the filmography more important than roles overall in terms of setting Mount Rushmore?
I think that's a great question. I think that for this list, because we're talking movie stars, not just great actors, because
Yes.
I think great actors from Texas might be a different list. I think there could be a difference there. I
Hmm.
would say that the roles are as important as the overall filmography.
Okay. Oh gosh, this is hard
I
because
know.
I do. I put Bill Paxton very much in kind of the same category of discussion as Patrick Swayze, where when you look at his biggest films, especially in like Twister, of course, is the one I always think of when I think Bill Paxton. That it endures it's a piece of iconography, kind of one of those great American action staples. Golly, he's great. Bill Paxton's great.
I think he's fantastic. I think that my one ding on him for this list is that he's fantastic in everything, but the stuff where he's the best thing in it or where he's really leading the charge. I mean, he just didn't have as much of a career like as a leading man movie star.
Yeah.
But he's fantastic in blockbusters. He can be your guy in a blockbuster, maybe not necessarily the lead, but I just don't know that he's the movie star.
Yeah, that's kind of where my hang up is because there are always those actors that really do just amazing work,
Yeah.
but second or third on the call sheet.
Yep.
And so yeah, I think if we're going leading star, then I think that is a small disqualifier for Bill Paxton, even though he's really great.
He's amazing. And it's hard. I want everyone listening to know how hard it is for us to do that.
Yeah, there's a lot of cringing. I have no idea if this is an on-camera show
Oh,
or
it
not.
is.
Great.
You look great though. You're good. And you have a nice even background. You're
Thank
doing
you.
great.
Hmm.
Let's talk about someone who I'm really curious to get your take on, Mr. Dennis Quaid, who I would say is inarguably a certain type of movie star. I
Yes.
mean, I don't know that it's my favorite type these days, especially, but I think he has had a very interesting career. And I mean, say what you want about him, he can still be the lead of a movie. He can still draw a crowd. He can still, his name could be above the title in something. Now, there are probably, it's probably a different set of something than it would have been 15 or 20 years ago, but he
Yeah.
can still do that.
So he is one of those where I think about the impact of his work. You know, when I think Dennis Quaid, I think The Parent Trap, which comes from both a place of just nostalgia. You know, I'm in my 30s, so like that was my shit growing up. But then also just that is where I feel he shined. He shined as this warm, you know, handsome, funny leading man. And there was this very kind of brief period where he was really doing incredible in that role. He doesn't hit for me elsewhere. And I think that has to be considered here. And part of this is, you know, I will always own my bias. I like what I like, and I don't have any problem saying that there are things that I dislike. So yeah, you know, if anybody wants to say you're biased because what he's doing right now isn't your thing, that's fine. I still don't feel impact. It doesn't linger.
Yeah, no, I think that's very fair and very honorable of you and noble to own your bias. Nobody owns their bias, Kate.
No one takes their film criticism less seriously than I do. I don't claim to be an expert on anything.
So let's talk about someone who Dennis Quaid has read. I don't think he's got the juice for
Yeah.
this. I want to talk about someone who I think will be an interesting conversation because they're really the only person on this list who I would consider kind of a golden age of Hollywood person. And when I was researching this list, I really did try to find some older film stars, who were maybe bigger in the 50s and 60s.
Hmm.
And it was a little tougher to get, good Texas contenders from that pool. But one person I did find was Miss Debbie Reynolds, who was born in El Paso, Texas. And I mean, for me personally is critical to my development as a film lover and a human being because she's in Halloween Town. But then also Singing in the Rain, I think is regarded as pretty good, right?
Oh yeah, generally pro Singing in the Rain.
Yeah. what
You
do
know,
you
just one of
what do
those
you think
old.
about Miss Reynolds?
Man, this is where it almost steps beyond being a Texas icon into being just a Hollywood icon. I think the unsinkable Molly Brown and Singing in the Rain in that golden age of the Technicolor musical, just it shaped everything about film and about how we structure things now. Man, yeah, she's huge, and in fact, she's almost, if this was a Hollywood Mount Rushmore, Debbie Reynolds shoe in. Is her star so bright that it expands beyond Texas?
I
Perhaps.
think that's a fair question because honestly, when I was putting together this list, I was a little surprised that Debbie Reynolds technically qualified as a Texan.
Mhm.
Because, I mean, you don't think of her in those terms. Like, she doesn't have, at least in the period we grew up in, I wouldn't say that the first thing Debbie Reynolds jumped out at people for was her Texasness, her Texas tie. And I think for a lot of these other guys or people that we're talking about, the Texas is a little more prominent.
Yeah, and I think it's just, and part of that is, I think that large identity. I think that Texas kind of occupies its own place in American mythology now as well, and I think that that is something that folks are more. I mean, I don't know. Like, I wasn't around in the golden age of Hollywood, so I have no idea how Texas was discussed. I mean, John Wayne was a thing, but he wasn't a Texan.
Right. I actually had him on my first draft of the list as like people who weren't from Texas but probably should have been.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think that Debbie Reynolds, she doesn't scream Texas, but she screams the movies.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do with Debbie, I'm going to make her yellow. She's an honorable mention. You know, she's someone we love and respect. She's probably a little maybe beyond this Mount Rushmore.
Hmm.
They have a bigger Mount Rushmore mountain over with her on it.
Yes, I think that's fair.
Okay, let's jump over now to someone I'm really interested to get your take on. One of the people on this list who's been active for the longest, still performing, still making things, Steve Martin.
I fucking love Steve Martin. He was the first name I wrote down as a must go on Mount Rushmore.
Okay, let's talk about it. Let's
Are
talk.
you
What's your
gonna fight me?
relationship to Steve Martin? How did you come to his work?
Gosh, so I up. My folks had a lot of Steve Martin comedy tapes, like his musical comedy. I actually was aware of him on SNL before I was aware of him as like an actor. The Three Amigos was my formal film introduction to him, which is just an all-timer fucking hilarious film. I also remembered like Cheaper by the Dozen. Again, that's sort of the nostalgia
Yeah,
factor coming in. I think that Steve Martin, one, I think that people don't realize how far his cultural touch goes. Like, I think that folks have that thing that they recognize him from. I think that, like, The Three Amigos is the big enduring film that he's done in terms of when you're talking to folks casually, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles being another one. So he's got that kind of foothold well, and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is what everybody watches after Thanksgiving dinner, which I think says something. It's kind of like Macaulay Culkin will always be a massive star because Home Alone. You just can't get around it. So, but I do think so. Everyone has their thing with Steve Martin where they're like, oh, yeah, he's a movie star that I like. But then when you get into his musical career, his comedy career, his dramatic work, I know that we're kind of like couching television a little bit, but like Only Murders in the Building, so good
right.
in that. So good in
Well,
that. And
and I
still
think
so
that goes
funny.
back to the point we were making about Owen Wilson, where Steve Martin, I mean, he's not leading movies the way he was 20 years ago, but I think he is still relevant and he is still using that star power to remain a movie star. Like if tomorrow they came out and said Steve Martin is going to debut a new comedy with Martin Short, it's going to be in theaters, they're making it together, like that would still be an event.
Yes, absolutely. They had a Super Bowl commercial. I mean, how much more relevant can you be than
Right.
still being in Super Bowl commercials?
Yeah, and I think something else about Steve Martin, and we've talked about this a little bit with some of the other guys like Ethan Hawke. You know, Steve Martin is a guy who, across his filmography, you can put him alongside some of the greatest movie stars in history, and he does not get outshone. Like Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, he is opposite the legendary Michael Caine. I mean, acquits himself beautifully, not only as a comedian, but as an actor. He can really, he can do the work.
Oh yeah. He definitely has like he has the chops. He does incredible work as a performer, but then still Steve Martin is always Steve Martin.
Yeah.
Going back to that point like way from the beginning of the episode. And I
Okay.
love that. I love Steve Martin. He should
I
be
do
up
too. We're sketching him on the list. Okay, so he's one of our top contenders.
there. Mhm.
Now, Let's talk Sissy Spacek. I think she's incredible. I just recently saw the new Lynn Ramsey film with Jennifer Lawrence, Die My Love,
Yeah.
and Sissy Spacek is in it. And she's one of those people who, like, every time she pops up, I'm like, oh my God, this is one of the greatest screen actors who ever lived, and we don't talk about her in those terms enough. What's your relationship to her body of work?
Oh my gosh. Well, my primary beat is horror, so Carrie.
Yeah.
Golly. And I think that's one of the perfect places to kind of begin and almost begin and end with Sissy Spacek is that when you think about Sissy Spacek now, like low key, one of my favorite roles that she has done in fairly recent years is she played Vince Vaughn's mom in Four Christmases,
Okay.
like the hippie mom who ended up hooking up with his best friend,
Yeah.
which honestly works so well for her. It's so fucking funny. And so when I think of her in terms of Carrie, where she's obviously incredible and she's delivering depth and making Carrie, because, there's always the argument that horror is cheap. I don't agree. And I think that Carrie is one of those great examples of how horror really works at its best. I think her performance has a lot to do with that. But then you can take her into these small roles where she has a two scene kind of chaotic moment in this Christmas movie and it shines and it's one of the absolute best parts of the movie. So I know that's a long roundabout way of saying my relationship with Sissy Spacek's work is I think she's absolutely incredible. I think that she goes beyond a character actress. I think that at every phase of her career, she reminds me a lot of the late Diane Keaton actually.
Really?
Just yeah, just this very enduring ability to grab you regardless of the size of the role, regardless of her age. Watching her from her films as a young actress, up to this point, I think she has a magnetism for me. She is on my short list. I thought Sissy Spacek had just incredible impact on this list, and a huge part of that comes from my affection for Carrie. But like The Old Man and the Gun with the late Robert Redford, another fantastic film.
I think a big part of that film is just she's so good in it, opposite Redford. And you do have these two titans of Hollywood history who still have their fastball, well into their set.
Yes, that print that and put it under her face on Mount Rushmore because that is exactly it.
Okay, let's talk about another woman who has an important place in film history, Shelley Duvall,
Hmm.
who I think is probably best remembered for her work in The Shining, of course, but, did a lot of work with the great Robert Altman, Nashville, Popeye, many other films. I think she has become kind of a fashion icon for some people over the years. Like there's some pictures of her that always make the rounds because people just love the way she presented herself back in the 80s. Do you think Shelley Duvall has a place on Mount Rushmore next to Sissy Spacek?
With immense affection. I think that aside about that snapshot of the 80s kind of speaks to me. That speaks. I think that Shelley Duvall was this vibrant spark for a very brief moment. Just that shine was bright enough that we have the afterglow, like whenever you get just absolutely nailed by the flash on a camera. What do they call that sensation?
Yeah, it's like the little floaters in your eye.
Little floaters. Yeah, I think we all still have Shelley Duvall floaters, but is that the same as her star still shining?
I think that's a fair point. And I'm on the same wavelength as you there. And so I want to talk about someone else who I think is kind of the same thing, but still active today, still radiant, but maybe is kind of the Shelley Duvall of the 90s as far as movie stardom goes. And that's Robin Wright.
Yeah.
In the 90s, Princess Bride, Forrest Gump, those are iconic roles, still talked about in the culture, still relevant today.
Hmm.
She obviously has never stopped working. She's done incredible work over the years, but I don't know if she's in the movie star conversation for me personally, at least as far as the Mount Rushmore goes for Texas.
To me, it's the Texas nature of it all. Because one thing I will say, and I'll take it back to Sissy Spacek. Part of this is the projects that Spacek has chosen that kind of keep her in cultural conversation with Texas. There's something recognizable about that. Whereas Robin Wright, The Princess Bride, Forrest Gump, those are all great things. I think about her recent work with, like House of Cards, and she did that Amazon Prime drama. Is it The Girlfriend? You know what I'm
Yes, yes, yeah, I know what you're talking about. The one about the mother.
Yes, where she plays the crazy mother, which was awesome, super
Yeah.
fun watch. But there's if there was a drama Mount Rushmore, if there was a really interesting female roles Mount Rushmore, Robin Wright would be a shoo-in for me. But there is something, and again, we're really having to nitpick to separate
Yeah,
here. There's a Texas flavor that is missing for me
I think
in her
that's fair.
very impressive body of work.
Robin Wright is almost in her presentation kind of, I guess, anti-Texan. Like she is someone who I don't think she embodies the Texas qualities. I think the qualities she embodies are incredible. I think she's an
Hmm.
amazing performer, but I don't think she's the Texas pick.
Yeah.
Okay, so she's not on. Let's talk about someone else who may be kind of in the Debbie Reynolds category, but a very different type of performer. Forrest Whitaker. Okay, so I think one of the greatest, not only living actors, but greatest actors in history. I love Forrest Whitaker. I think that the arguments for him as a movie star are myriad over the years. He
Hmm.
is technically a Texas guy. He's a Texas movie star. He's won an Oscar. He got Best Actor for The Last King of Scotland. One of those guys who I think can do and has done anything, and kind of like Ethan Hawke, can be number one on the call sheet, can be number five on the call sheet, and
Yes,
you
absolutely.
still have an equal chance of walking out of the movie being like, Forrest Whitaker was the best part of that, right?
Yes.
Do you think he goes on the Mount Rushmore? She's shaking her head.
There's only four slots on Mount Rushmore.
I know, I know, I know.
It's so hard. It's so hard because he's fantastic. And I think has that star quality, presence. He is a figure that endures. This is where, because I don't necessarily think that the secret to getting on Texas Mount Rushmore is like the yeehaw of it all. I'm sure that that comes up. I'm sure we'll
Yeah.
argue about it later on, but damn, he is one of those. I could comfortably see him up there for now. And we're just gonna have to make 10 spots up
Okay,
on.
we're gonna have to do a bigger Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, much bigger Mount Rushmore.
I'm putting him up there for right now. We'll talk through our final selections as we wrap up. We're almost done with the main list. So I want to jump to someone else who I think has had a really interesting career. It's another female artist, Renee Zellweger, who has won multiple Oscars, has starred in some incredible films, has an enduring franchise in Bridget Jones's Diary.
Mm,
Of course, also beloved for her work in Chicago, Jerry Maguire. She won her second Oscar for a Judy Garland biopic. I think everyone was kind of shocked by that one, but it did happen. What do you think about her as a Mount Rushmore candidate?
Oh, in terms of star power, I mean, huge. I think, easily one of the most compelling, and just everybody on this list is incredibly talented, but I mean her work and the ability for it to stick in terms of like Bridget Jones' Diary, that's a rite of passage for womanhood in a lot of ways.
Right. And you
I
can
can't
grow
wait.
up with those films as a woman. I think that's really interesting too, because there are so many and they're made over such a span of years. Like she's someone you can live with, kind of in the way that people of our generation grew up with the Harry Potter books and films. Like you
Exactly.
watch her go through that stuff on screen, and she goes a little further, where it's not just her as a young woman. The most recent one is her middle aged and kind of
Hmm.
dealing with issues.
Yeah, so with that in mind, and with Chicago just being such a beautiful performance, I mean, gosh, I'm starting to sweat thinking about narrowing this down.
We're gonna yellow her. We're gonna make her a maybe.
Okay.
She's in that Patrick Swayze category.
Okay.
So let's talk about someone who I think is just probably the first person who I'm like, well, they're going on no matter what. Mr. Matthew McConaughey, who we
Ding, ding,
opened
ding.
this conversation with. Talk to me about your relationship with McConaughey.
He is exactly as advertised. I had the great pleasure of seeing him introduce Austin Butler's Caught Stealing
Oh
film in
my God, I
Austin.
wish I'd been there that night.
He gave a great talk about the film before it started, and I mean it's that instantly recognizable presence that we were talking about earlier. It's McConaughey. McConaughey is immediately recognizable. It's a smile, it's a look, it's a voice. I mean, it is McConaughey, like Cher. Just this immediate thing. But you can look at his history with Dallas Buyers Club, his rom com era that we discussed earlier. True Detective is something that I've actually come to think a lot about now. I know it's not not technically a film, but just an amazing role of his. Yeah, and I think McConaughey, and perhaps this should be the standard, or at least this is how I'm going to try to think about it as we sort this out. It is an intimacy with Texas culture and Texas identity. In everything that Matthew McConaughey shares of his personal life and what he presents as part of his star, it's a connection to Texas. He loves his Texas sports. If he's in a liquor ad, he's adding lime to the cocktail, whatever it is. These are all quintessential Texas things that are a big part of himself. And I think he brings that in terms of scale, scope, flavor, that authenticity in terms of just the kind of that southern charm, but not in a foghorn leghorn kind of way, if that makes sense.
Right. No, I think that's
There's a
exactly
spectrum.
right. He's incredible, and I am such a huge fan of him personally and professionally. I love his work, and I think he is so effortlessly charming and kind of the apotheosis of a Texas movie star. He's exactly what you want.
Yeah, and I think our greatest star, not just from a Texas perspective, but I mean, that carries across everything he does, and it carries into the upper echelons of Hollywood.
Yeah, I completely agree. Okay, Matthew McConaughey they're already carving him onto the
Yeah,
mountain.
face
He's there.
stamped.
Jamie Foxx.
Also on my short list.
Yeah, I thought he might be. Now
Hmm.
I love hanging out with Mr. Fox. I think he's incredible. I think he's had such an interesting, varied career where he can do the character actor thing and the movie star thing,
Yes.
and still just, I mean, one of kind of like Matthew McConaughey, one of the most charismatic, interesting performers you can have in a film. Does he go on Mount Rushmore?
He is definitely, for me, he is definitely one who will be duking it out to the bitter end. Because I think that his range, his star quality, I actually put him a lot closer to Matthew McConaughey than folks might assume. There is and it's that personable, he still also seems very in touch with his roots. I think that part of how he reaches out to people, part of the way that he interacts just as a professional in the entertainment industry and what he shows whenever he talks about his work, there is and far be it from me to say that being humble is a Texan quality because it most certainly is not. But there's something grounded and rooted about it that just feels correct. It feels correct for Texas identity. It's our better angels. It's how we want to be represented.
I think being able to present as humble is a Texas quality.
I wouldn't know
Okay,
anything about that.
Jamie Foxx is a strong contender. He's on the list. Now, Jennifer Garner, who I think is another interesting conversation point for this because maybe not someone we think of as a movie star, but I mean has had big movies, big influential films for a certain generation. 13 going on 30. She's in Catch Me If You Can, Juno, Ghosts of Girlfriends Past. I mean, she works. She's around. She was Electra. Does she have a place in the conversation?
I think that whenever you've got names like Sissy Spacek and Renee Zellweger floating around, I think those are big shadows, and
Yeah,
we lose her.
I agree. Now I've got three more I'm going to rapid fire at you before we wrap up and kind of chisel the list down. Jennifer Love Hewitt, Lou Diamond Phillips,
Hmm.
Powers Booth. All fantastic Texas actors.
Yeah.
Are they Texas movie stars?
It's so gun to my head. It really is. I hate this. Never have me on for one of these ever again.
But you've
Golly,
been so good at it. Like
thank
you should
you.
be worse at this if you don't want to come back.
Oh man. I think the closest we get is Lou Diamond Phillips.
I'd agree.
I'm going to let's hold on to Lou Diamond Phillips and let's scrap Jennifer Love Hewitt and Powers Booth.
Okay. So where that puts us for our because that's the list of movie stars. We've made it through. So we have Matthew McConaughey, 100% going on, kind of the gold standard.
Yep.
So we have three slots left. And in our strong contenders category, we've got Ethan Hawke, Forrest Whitaker, Jamie Foxx, Sissy Spacek, Steve Martin, and Tommy Lee Jones. That's six names for three slots.
Uh,
So we've got to make some tough choices. And that's not even to mention the various honorable mentions we have, which include Debbie Reynolds, who we agreed is more of a movie star, Mount
yeah.
Rushmore. Lou Diamond Phillips, Patrick Swayze, Renee Zellweger, and Woody Harrelson.
Okay.
So who, let's say, out of that list of names I just read,
Mm-hmm.
gut reaction, who's the next person going on Mount Rushmore?
Gut reaction, Steve Martin.
Okay. I feel very good about that. And I think that's kind of a fun pick that I think people at a glance wouldn't really expect for this.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think he's so important. Like, he's
I think Steve
incredible.
Martin is so incredibly important, and I think he's so incredibly Texan.
Yeah, I completely agree. Okay, Steve Martin, we're in agreement on. Now, here's where I'm hung up, okay?
Okay.
For the rest of this list, we've got two slots. We've got five really strong contenders. And there are three that I feel really passionate about.
All right.
Tommy Lee Jones, Sissy Spacek, and Ethan Hawke are probably my top three for those two slots. Now that leaves out Forrest Whitaker, Jamie Foxx. What do you think of that?
So I'm with you on Sissy Spacek.
Okay, Sissy Spacek's in.
Yeah, I'm with you on Sissy Spacek, and I think so. So in the interest of ratings and just making good content, could I swap Jamie Foxx for Tommy Lee Jones? Would you fight me?
No, I'm fine with that.
Okay. So it comes down to Ethan Hawke versus Jamie Foxx. What you think?
Oh, man, I think it's tough. I think for me, it would be Ethan Hawke, but it would be a knife fight and no one's walking out clean.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. I think,
And I will say this to your point earlier about kind of the work that Woody Harrelson has done in the Texas film community. I think that Ethan Hawke is still active in the Texas film community in a way that even Jamie Foxx isn't. And I
yes, he is.
think that says something for his stature within the state and the state's film industry.
I agree completely, and that's kind of the note that I was hanging on as well, because I do think that Ethan Hawke stays very plugged into other Texas stars and Texas creators. He stays very plugged into Texas stories.
Yeah.
And I have to take it back to his ability to just really shine no matter where you put him. And to do really impressive work as an actor. So and I think the knife fight, that is exactly it. It doesn't feel clean. I'm going to cry about this after it's all done, but I would give it to Ethan Hawke no problem and feel really good about that.
Okay. So that
And
means
send a nice casket to Jamie Foxx.
Our Mount Rushmore is Ethan Hawke, Matthew McConaughey, Sissy Spacek, Steve Martin. Do we feel good about that?
I love it.
I do too. Okay. And then in honorable mentions, people who didn't quite make the cut, but maybe there's a fun fact about them in a book written about our Mount Rushmore. Debbie Reynolds, Forrest Whitaker, Jamie Foxx, Lou Diamond Phillips, Patrick Swayze, Renee Zellweger, and Woody Harrelson and Tommy Lee Jones.
Yep.
I think that's fair. I think this worked out really well. We did it. Did you enjoy yourself?
No. I I have not been more stressed in months.
Tell your husband I'm sorry. If you like come home in a bad mood tonight, tell him it's my fault and I'm so sorry.
Oh, I'm always in a bad mood. It's fine. He's fine. There are a couple I actually he can never know. He can't know that I did this. He knows I was recording a podcast today. He didn't know what for. I think he will be so upset with me on some of these.
Yeah. Well, tell him he can come on anytime and do a rebuttal.
Wonderful.
Well, Cait, I want to thank you so much for joining me. You were on my dream list of guests from the second I started this show. I knew I wanted to have you on and talk to you.
You say that to
Um,
all the girls.
no, 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 no. I absolutely love your work. I've been a fan of your work for years, and you've been an inspiration for me. So this really does mean so much. I hope I get to have you on again in the very near future to talk about something a little less stressful. Maybe we can just dive deep on a film we both love with ties to Texas.
I would love that.
Where can the people go to follow you and find out what you're doing next?
So the easiest place to find me is Instagram at Cait the Muse. That's Cait the Muse. It's like my fourth rebrand in the almost 10 years that I've been doing this as I struggle to balance, having a thriving social media presence with not wanting to be on the internet so much.
It's tough.
It's very tough. That's kind of the best place to keep track of all my work, everything that's going on. If you want to read just about film specifically, then Simply Cinema at Substack.
Okay, fantastic. All right. Well, Kate, thank you again so much, and we'll pick this up again soon.
All right.